Recently on Facebook, a friend of mine posted a link. I'll attach the link below so you can see it. That link was a post of an article from the National Center for Special Education Research, which is under the U.S. Department of Education. It was published in February 2011. The article was titled "The Secondary School Experience and Academic Performance of Students with Hearing Impairments." In that study, students, they were labeled by the school district they're in, or by the school specifically that they're in, especially if they had a disability of a hearing loss. They were hard of hearing. First, they were ages between 13 and 16. They were receiving special education services. The special education services specifically didn't matter, just that they were receiving them. They happened between 2000 and 2001, about. They figured out that about 76% of the deaf and hard of hearing students went to public schools. That's 76%. The others went to the residential schools, charter schools, or private schools. But most went to the public schools, 76% of them. The students were given a test called the Woodcock-Johnson III Tests of Achievement. That test measures your academic skill, basically what you've learned. This test has several different parts. The research focused on a few specific parts: passage comprehension, meaning that you read it and would understand; synonyms and antonyms, knowing what a word means; mathematics and calculations; applied problems, like word problems; social studies; and the sciences. All those parts of the test were observed. That test was developed to set up what they call the standard scores. The standard score is the mean, or the middle, the average is 100, which means that if you randomly picked 100 people and gave them the test, you would find that 50 of them scored below the average, and 50 would score above the average. Of course, it's possible that a group of 100 people, because it is random, that you maybe could get 57 people above the average or mean, or 43 people below that number. It's possible, and it's normal to have a range of about 15 people. But on average, it should come out to about 50-50. That's what they call normal distribution, or the bell curve. At the end of the study, they figured out that deaf students, 87%, scored below the average on passage comprehension. 86% were below average in science and social studies. 85 were below that number in applied problems, like the math word problems. 81 were below the average for synonyms and antonyms. And 60% were below average in mathematics and calculations, which means that you don't have normal distribution. You have what is called skewed distribution. It looks like this. When you see skewed distribution like that, where the curve is either at the beginning, it means that there's something wrong. Recently, several states have discussed closing their schools for the deaf, or cutting funding for those schools, which means that they could close or would be unable to provide the same level of services as they do now. Closing the schools for the deaf is a violation of the students' PL 94-142/IDEA rights, the right to choose educational placement options, either public schools or the residential schools for the deaf. These states think that closing the schools for the deaf will save money. That's not true. If students all go to public schools, it means that all the public schools will need more money. They'll pay for interpreters, special service providers, and other special services that students need. Plus, in the research proves that mainstreaming does not work academically for deaf students. What does that mean? It means that states will have to increase long-term costs because the deaf students will be undereducated. Being undereducated leads to underemployment, which means that they would get low-skilled jobs instead of high-skilled jobs because they can't go to college, or they set up barriers for themselves from being able to work. They're working in low-skilled jobs, their incomes will be significantly reduced. That's a result of lower taxes and such. So the government won't be getting the money that they could be. So the government will suffer. Plus, the governments will have to increase costs, having to pay for SSI for the people who are undereducated and underemployed. The government will have to spend more money to help people through unemployment or VR services and so forth. Closing the schools for the deaf is not a good idea. Not in the short term or in the long term. We must take care of our schools for the deaf. We must preserve them. They are important and provide necessary services for deaf students.